Have you ever wondered how autism manifests itself in adults? Many people associate autism with signs that appear in childhood, but it can also be identified later in life. Some signs can go unnoticed, either because they are subtle or because the person has found ways of dealing with them over the years. In this video, we'll take a look at the main signs of autism in adults. After all, understanding more about the subject is not only a form of knowledge, but also of empathy and acceptance. Number 1. Difficulty in social interactions. Social interaction is a complex skill that involves interpreting subtle cues, such as facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language, as well as adjusting our responses according to the context. For many people with autism, this social dance can be challenging. In autism, the brain works in a unique way, and this can influence how someone perceives and processes social interactions. An adult with autism may find it difficult to understand social norms, such as knowing when it's appropriate to speak or how to interpret another person's mood. They may also find it difficult to understand feelings that are not clearly expressed, or may prefer more direct and objective interactions. In addition, social situations can be stressful for those with sensory sensitivity or who prefer a predictable environment, common characteristics in autism. The effort required to decipher interactions can lead to anxiety or exhaustion, causing these people to avoid challenging social situations. Number 2. Preference for routines. Many people like to have a routine. It brings order to the day and helps organize tasks. However, for adults with autism, the preference for routines goes beyond comfort. It can be a necessity to maintain emotional and mental balance. In autism, the brain tends to seek predictability. Unexpected changes can cause a sense of disorder, generating anxiety or discomfort. For this reason, following a structured routine can help a person feel more secure and in control of their life. For example, someone with autism may insist on always doing things at the same time or in the same place, such as sitting in the same chair at the table. This doesn't mean stubbornness, but rather a strategy for dealing with the world in a more manageable and less overwhelming way. This characteristic, however, doesn't mean that adults with autism can't be flexible. With time and support, many learn to manage change better and even adapt to new scenarios. Number 3. Intense focus on specific interests. Have you ever met someone who could spend hours talking about a specific topic with impressive enthusiasm and knowledge? This intense focus on one or more interests can be a hallmark of adults with autism. In autism, special interests often become a central point in the person's life. They are not just hobbies, but true passions that bring joy, comfort, and even a sense of identity. These interests can range from common themes, such as technology or sports, to more unusual subjects, such as maps, mathematical patterns, or specific collections. This level of dedication occurs because the brain of a person with autism tends to be highly efficient at focusing deeply on something that interests them. In addition, immersing themselves in these topics can offer a sense of security in a world that sometimes seems unpredictable or overwhelming. Although this trait can seem isolating, it also has a very positive side. Intense focus allows many people with autism to develop extraordinary skills or in-depth knowledge in their areas of interest. These talents can be extremely valuable, both to them and to society. Number 4. Sensory sensitivity. Most people perceive the world around them through their 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. However, for adults with autism, these senses can be more intense, or in some cases, less sensitive, which can cause a different and often more challenging sensory experience. Some adults with autism are more sensitive to stimuli, such as bright lights, loud sounds, or even certain types of fabric. What for many people may seem like an ordinary sensation, such as the noise of a busy street or the label on a shirt, can be overwhelming for someone with heightened sensory sensitivity. For example, a seemingly harmless sound, such as a fan or the rustling of papers, can be irritating or even painful for a person with autism. Similarly, the textures of food, clothing, or materials can be uncomfortable or even unbearable. This sensory hypersensitivity occurs because the brain of someone with autism processes stimuli differently. Sometimes they can overreact to something that other people don't notice or don't mind as much. This can lead to behaviors such as covering their ears, avoiding certain places or clothes, or even feeling anxious in situations with a lot of stimuli. Number 5. Difficulty in expressing emotions. Human emotions are complex and often challenging to express clearly. For many adults with autism, this difficulty in showing what they are feeling can be even more pronounced, which can cause misunderstandings in social interactions. In autism, the brain processes emotions differently, which can make it more difficult to identify or communicate feelings. Often, the person with autism feels emotions intensely but has difficulty translating them into words or facial expressions. This can make them seem distant or indifferent, when in fact they are just having difficulty showing how they feel. This difficulty doesn't mean that the person with autism doesn't feel empathy or that they don't have a rich emotional life. They may just express themselves differently. For example, someone with autism may show care and concern in a more practical or direct way, such as by offering help rather than showing emotional support verbally. Number 6. Tendency to avoid eye contact. Eye contact is an important part of social communication. For many people, looking into someone's eyes during a conversation is a natural way of showing attention and empathy. However, for adults with autism, this practice can be uncomfortable or even challenging. By now, you've understood that an autistic person's brain works a little differently, and that includes interpreting social cues such as eye contact. For many people with autism, looking into someone's eyes can be overstimulating or even distressing. The intensity of eye contact can be perceived as sensory overload, which makes it difficult to concentrate on the conversation or even relax during the interaction. In addition, difficulty with eye contact may be related to the way autism affects the perception of emotions. For some, looking into another person's eyes can be disconcerting, as the emotional communication that accompanies the gaze, such as understanding whether the other person is happy, sad, or angry, may not be so clear. Number 7. Peculiar communication. Communication is an essential skill in social interactions, but for adults with autism, it can manifest itself in a slightly different way. A peculiar communication style is a common feature among people with autism, and this can be seen both in the way they speak and in their choice of words. A person with autism may, for example, use more formal language, speak in a very direct or detailed manner, or even focus on specific topics for long periods of time. This way of expressing themselves can be perceived by those who don't know about autism as something strange, but in fact, it's just a different way of communicating their ideas and thoughts. One of the reasons for this peculiar communication style is the way the brain of a person with autism processes language. It may be that instead of following the fluidity and informality of everyday conversation, the person prefers a more logical and direct structure, which can result in more technical or detailed speech. In addition, many people with autism have a very literal interpretation of words. This means that they may not understand idioms, sarcasm, or puns well, and prefer clearer, more objective communication. This can lead to answers that, to those unfamiliar with autism, may seem out of context or peculiar. Number 8. Difficulty understanding sarcasm or irony. Sarcasm and irony are forms of communication that depend on nuances, context, and often tone of voice. For many people, these features are part of everyday life and are easily understood, but for adults with autism, interpreting sarcasm or irony can be a major challenge. Many people with autism have a tendency to interpret things more literally. For example, If someone says, "What a great idea," in a sarcastic way, the person with autism may take it as a genuine compliment without realizing that there is a tone of criticism or mockery. This challenge in understanding sarcasm and irony is related to the difficulty in picking up on subtle signals during social interactions, such as tone of voice, facial expression, or body language. These elements, which for many people help to distinguish between what is said and what is really being communicated, can go unnoticed or be misinterpreted by those with autism. In addition, humor based on sarcasm and irony often involves a game of expectations and contradictions, something that can be confusing for a person with autism, who may prefer more direct and unambiguous communication. Number 9. Preference for individual activities. Many people like to spend time alone from time to time, whether it's to relax, focus on a hobby, or simply to recharge. However, for adults with autism, the preference for individual activities can be more than just an occasional preference. It can be a fundamental need for well-being. For many, social situations can be intense and overwhelming. Being in the midst of several people, dealing with simultaneous conversations, interpretations of facial expressions and gestures, can require significant mental effort, which can cause fatigue or anxiety. Therefore, moments of solitude offer an opportunity to relax and process information more calmly. In addition, many people with autism have a deep connection with certain interests or activities, such as reading, drawing, playing games, or collecting something. These hobbies, which are often practiced individually, offer a form of immersion that can be comforting and even therapeutic. During these moments, the person has total control over their environment and can concentrate more efficiently without distractions or external pressures. Number 10. Repetitive behaviors. Repetitive behaviors are a very common feature of autism, and this can be noticed in adults in a variety of ways. These behaviors can include repetitive movements, such as rocking the body or hands, or the need to constantly perform specific actions or rituals. One of the reasons these behaviors occur is the desire to cope with anxiety and sensory overload. The world around can be an unpredictable and often chaotic place for someone with autism. In situations of stress or discomfort, repetitive behaviors work as a way of bringing predictability and control, helping the person to calm down and feel more secure. In addition, many adults with autism have an internal need to organize their environment or activities in a way that feels comfortable. This can manifest as the repetition of certain gestures, words, or behaviors as a way of creating order in a world that can seem disorganized or difficult to understand. Understanding the signs of autism in adults is an important step towards promoting acceptance, empathy, and inclusion. Each of the topics we talk about here are not flaws or limitations, but natural aspects of a unique way of perceiving and interacting with the world. Each of these characteristics reflects a different way of living and understanding the world around us. Recognizing and respecting these differences, without judgment, is fundamental to creating a more inclusive and welcoming environment. By better understanding these peculiarities, we can support adults with autism more effectively, promoting a space where they feel comfortable expressing themselves authentically and living according to their needs and rhythms. And if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next ones.